Good morning, good night, good afternoon, you beautiful patriots, you. So glad you could hang out with me and also patriots and the like. We're having a good Wednesday after, or this is morning now, down here in South Jersey. It's probably early morning on the West Coast. We're down at the southern tip. You can call me Big H, Big Cat. Everybody knows me as either one. But we got Savati coming up. That's a nice little clip I wanted to start with. But we also, I got a react video of prior James D. I guess actually Pastor James D. And just fantastic. They're going to look into the Proud Families video that I kind of felt like, it was good until it wasn't. And it starts out kind of, if it was my race, I would be proud of it until it gets to a certain spot. I guess about a minute into the little short there. So without further ado, let's make sure we're ready to go. And without further ado, we're going to introduce you to Savati. Now this is a this is a really cool clip as far as it's got some really good clips in it as far as flipping over. So check it out.
Round one, fight.
Now listen to me carefully on this one. The truth is, I do not hate anyone. I do not hate anyone. I look for grace wherever I can find it. So I say this gently. The Biden administration sucks.
Oh, he got you there. He got you there.
You measure it any way you want. COVID, the economy, inflation, the national debt, the border, crime, cancel culture, treating parents like domestic terrorists.
Thriller. Who does not?
Afghanistan, our energy independence, now lost. My God. President Biden has been spectacularly awful.
Who doesn't love this man? Come on, Senator Kennedy, get some.
If you put President Biden in charge of the Sahara Desert, he would run out of sand.
Not a joke.
If the aliens landed in Washington, D.C. tomorrow and said, "Take me to your leader," it would be embarrassing.
Oh, that reminds me of someone. That's bad. That's killer. Uh-oh. Oh. Brutal.
Poor little bugger. He's so small. He's like a dog or something.
So I say this gently.
Oh.
The Biden administration sucks.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That was crazy. Right? Can you give it up for John Kennedy there, Senator? Oh man, he's good. He's good. All right. I know they were slightly brutal there. But the one thing I got out of that little clip was I got a vision of the Sahara Desert. I sure did. And I can just see the president standing there going, I have no clue where the sand went. We had it. I used a little bit of it, and it's gone. So I got a vision on that one. I got a visual. Well, anyway, that was just for fun. But I want to bring up Pastor James D. Now, I just found Pastor James D. And I'm going to do, as soon as it got into Miss Tree of Life, I had to stop it because I want to react to it in real time. I just happened to pop in on him and fell in love already. Just incredible. So let's get into that. Let's not waste time. I want to introduce you guys, if you haven't already, to Pastor D. And if a commercial comes up, that's fine. And if you can like, subscribe, share, that's fine. Hit the notification bell, that's fine. Keeps the algorithms going. Peace.
Hello, friends. Welcome once again to Look and Live. You are here with Pastor James Devalon. I got a good one for you. I'm telling you something. Get excited. Get excited.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that video that went viral talking about from the Proud Family, slaves build this country?
I do.
did a reaction video to this thing. And
So, by the way, this is a reaction by Pastor, and I'm reacting to a reaction. And where do you meet Miss Tree? Tree of Life. That sister's got it going.
We're going to watch this excerpt very quickly. So let's take a listen to this video, and I'm going to tell you where we're going because it gets exciting. Because just wait till you see this. Let me tell you something. Wake up, grandma. Tap your husband. Tell him, take a look at this. Luke and Liv is here. Pastor James is here. We're going to have some fun tonight.
Now, let me just also say, normally I would cut to where Miss Tree is going to break this down, but I want you to see the video in its entirety and feel it. Like I said, it has a little bit of positive in it. Whether I'm white or black or tan or whatever, purple, it doesn't matter. You can still feel a little cringy from it. And I normally don't do where I show the video twice, but the way Miss Tree's going to break it down, that's important too. So you'll see it in full, and then you'll see it with a breakdown.
So this is going to be the last video that I have for you tonight. And I saved the best for last for a good reason. Now, listen, this is the Proud Family, right? This is what they say in this video, right? Very few people were able to address this, all right? I know I wasn't able to address it. I didn't have all the knowledge. I have puzzles and things like that. But I'm going to share something with you today that's going to shock you. Watch this.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country. Tilled this land from sea to sea to sea. First there was rice, tobacco, sugar cane. Then Whitney did his thing and cotton became king. And we were its soldiers, 4 million strong, fighting for America's freedoms, even though we remained America's slaves. Built this country. The descendants of slaves continue to build it. Slaves built this country. And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering and continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy that America was founded with and still has not atoned for. Slaves built this country. Not only field hands, but carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, musicians, inventors built cities from Jamestown to New Orleans to Banneker, Washington. 40 acres and a mule. We'll take the 40 acres, keep the mule. We made your families rich. From the southern plantation heirs to the northern bankers to the New England ship owners, the founding fathers, former presidents, current senators,
the Illuminati, the New World Order.
Slaves built this country. We had Tubman, Turner,
Frederick D.
Didn't they say Lincoln freed the slaves?
But slaves were men.
And women. And only we can free ourselves. Emancipation is not freedom. Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, public schools, feeding private prisons, where we become slaves again. As we celebrate Juneteenth for the umpteenth time, our account is still outstanding. Cause this country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country. And we demand our 40 acres and a mule. About that, you can keep the mule.
Keep the 40.
We're taking our freedom.
You remember this? Okay. When I first saw this, I was like, there's a lot of things wrong with this. There's a lot of things not adding up, right? And I was not able to put a proper perspective on this.
That is huge, because actually I couldn't either. But for a black man to be able to say that, like he couldn't process it, probably doesn't know the history, like he would like to know the history. I don't know, he might say that, but keep going.
Debunk the view.
There
and
she
everything.
is.
Well, somebody did the job for us, okay? Now, we are heading over to the YouTube channel. Listen, a link to the description of this YouTuber.
Same here.
In the video, okay? This is the Treehouse News. She's a black woman. When you hear a white Caucasian person debunk something like this, oftentimes they'll say, because you Caucasian, you can speak about things like this. you're racist for debunking something about racism, right? so,
Got to agree.
so this is not a white person. For those of you who have an issue with white people saying anything about racism, I don't.
And right now, because of Scott Adams and what he did, he pulled the rug out of that issue. So more and more white people are able to start describing, and I don't even want to say fighting back, but just trying to help the truth get in front of the sale here, because we all hang out. I go outside this house. I don't have any problems with anybody. Hopefully they don't. I can't tell they have any problems with me, white or black. And you know, black people go out and they don't have problems with us. What we have, and I'm not saying there isn't completely any problems, but let's just say if it's 10% problems in 1960, it was 90% problems, and we got to 10%, mainstream media still makes it look like 90%, if not 95. So I am proud to stand here with my brother, Pastor, and my sister, okay, Miss Tree here, Tree of Life, and rock and roll with this video. This means a lot to me, this video. It touches me right in my heart that they're communicating to me, and now I'm going to communicate to you guys, and we're all communicating together. And they hate that. They
Don't, but some people do. But I found myself a black woman with the knowledge, with the understanding, with the sarcasm, and with the truth bomb to debunk the entire thing. Friends, I was not able to debunk it. I didn't have all the knowledge. I have pieces and puzzles here and there. I probably picked out 3 or 4 things that I'm like, there's about 3 or 4 things here being said that didn't line up very, you know. But the way it is put together, so quickly done, fast paced, you kind of have to pause and really do some digging. But here, this lady did the job for me. I'm going to give her the credit. Please go to her channel, show her some love, because let me tell you something. Get excited, because she's going to give you a side of the story you either already knew or you didn't know before. Some of the stuff she spoke about, I knew, but I was not able to put them in perspective. She did the job for me.
And about 20 seconds into her starting is when I stopped it. So now I'm reacting with you guys on what Miss Tree here has to say.
Friends, I really pray that the Lord will bless her channel, because she's
Amen.
doing a good work. Now
Amen.
let's take a listen to this.
Hey everybody, this is Tree from treeoflogic.com. The Proud Family is an American animated television series created by Bruce W. Smith that originally ran on Disney Channel from September 2001 to August 2005. Fans consider it to be a wholesome, diverse, and entertaining show. A rival known as The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, premiered on Disney Plus on February the 23rd, 2022, and is considered angry, woke, and anti-white. This video is going to be different than other reactionary videos in reference to the new woke version of The Proud Family. I'm going to fact check each false claim that is made in this small clip that went viral on Twitter. You're looking for someone to actually fact check the false claims that are made in the Louder and Prouder version of The Proud Family? Well, look no further. You may want to bookmark this one. So let's begin.
I just gotta say, I'm excited, because I have been doing this. I've been fighting on Twitter more than I have on now YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok. I'm fighting TikTok hard. This excites me because we're growing together now. This is amazing. And yes, I pray that her channel gets a lot of attention for this, especially good, bright, light attention.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country.
No,
Whoops.
Slaves did not build this country. Allow me to explain.
What was that,
Before I
7
proceed
seconds?
Further,
Was that 7 seconds? She going on now.
I want to talk about the words colonize and colonizer. I've noticed that a lot of blacks and self-hating white liberals tend to use these words in order to dehumanize and shame white people. And thanks to the movie Wakanda, calling white people colonizers is now considered a racial epithet. However, I ask white people who are called these names to not feel ashamed. Being known as a colonizer is not a bad thing. I mean, have you looked at the places that have been colonized versus the places that have not been colonized? Here, let me show you the difference. Colonized, not colonized. Colonized, not colonized. I can do this all day. I also find it interesting that most of the world population prefer to live in countries that have been colonized versus places that have not been colonized.
There you go.
Why are colonizers bad again? And where was I?
Slaves built this country.
Oh yeah, debunking this bullshit.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country.
The land that we know now as Virginia was first colonized in 1607 by English travelers under King James, which was named Jamestown at the time. No African slaves were with them during this time, so they, the English, built their colonies, not slaves. Tobacco was the big money-making crop for the settlers at that time. It was the Englishmen who were growing loads of tobacco and bringing it back to England to sell. This created for them wealth, which attracted more colonists, and thus Jamestown began to expand, still with no slaves. It wasn't until late August of 1619 when at least 1,000 more settlers arrived in Jamestown, hoping to capitalize on the growing tobacco market. And out of those 1,000 settlers, only 19 were slaves from Angola, who arrived on the English ship called the White Lion. Now,
She's even breaking it down to the ship name. Go ahead, girl. That's awesome. I didn't even know that.
here's something that they don't teach children in
Yeah, that sets the foundation for the 1619 project kind of thing. I know part of that story here. This is so good. Are you enjoying the show so far? Come on, give me a thumbs up
Absolutely.
below. Make sure you do that. Make sure you check out the links in the description of this video as well. We got
Ditto.
a lot going on.
Ditto.
If you have not become a member of the Look and Live, what's taking you so long? We got a lot going on in this place. 3 videos a day. Come on now, friends. We're keeping the fire burning. Let's get back to the video.
school today. The 19 Africans that were brought to Jamestown in 1619 were considered indentured servants, meaning that they will work for 7 years before giving their freedom, buying land, building a home on that land, and growing, in addition to selling tobacco for profit. However, not all 19 Africans took advantage of this option. Most preferred to continue working under the Englishmen until death. Oh, and one more thing. The slaves in the early 1600s were not mistreated as illustrated in movies like Roots, Emancipation, and Django Unchained. It wasn't until 1660 when the laws changed to where Africans were no longer considered indentured servants and given the option to work up to 7 years before giving their freedom. The new law made this option illegal, and all slaved Africans were now forced to live as lifelong chattel slaves. So this is part one of how slaves did not build this country. So when these animated characters start yelling, "Slaves built this country," that's when I will talk about part two.
Tilled this land from sea to sea to sea. First it was rice, tobacco, sugarcane.
It's funny how she says that slaves tilled this land from sea to sea by giving a false impression that only blacks from Africa were enslaved. Every race enslaved their own, including Africans. So the woke mob of today.
Yeah, thanks to Thomas Sowell for that one, because Thomas Sowell has certainly enlightened my mind concerning this truth.
I read Thomas Sowell. He's definitely the bomb, well educated, well spoken. If you have a chance to look him up, I suggest you do so. Thomas Sowell. Sowell.
the thing is, very few blacks actually understands this. I don't know why, because it's how historical books should tell you that, but also, even if you have a knowledge of the Bible, even the Bible tells you this stuff. I mean, Mesopotamia, Babylon, Middle Persia, Greece, Rome, even Israel, Egypt, slaves everywhere. Anyway, let's get back to it.
They want to rewrite the history of slavery by falsely stating that slavery exists only out of racism. This is not true. Those who took the time to research history will find that either the rich or the strong would often enslave those who were weaker and vulnerable of their own race. Asians enslaved weaker Asians. Africans enslaved conquered Africans. The Balkans were enslaved by the Europeans. Indigenous people enslaved other indigenous people, and so on and so on. This went on for 6 centuries before the first Africans were brought to the Western Hemisphere by Europeans. So, tilling of the land from sea to sea were done by slaves who were enslaved by their own race, including Africans.
Tilled this land from sea to sea to sea. First it was rice, tobacco, sugar cane.
I also need to point out the dishonesty in this clip. The profits from exporting crops in America told in this clip is all wrong. It did not start with rice, then tobacco and sugarcane. The historical order of crops based upon profits started with tobacco in 1610 out of Jamestown, sugarcane in 1795 out of Louisiana.
That's a big jump in years. That's a real big jump. I was even surprised rice because I didn't know of any real rice fields in the United States, and I'm sorry for that. That's my failure there. Anyway.
And then rice in 1890 out of Louisiana.
Uncle Ben's. Did that get canceled?
And Texas. They couldn't even get that right.
Whitney did his thing and cotton became king. And we were its soldiers.
Oh, I love it. I love her already. She makes me happy. Are you enjoying the show so far? Woo. She's on fire. She's on fire. Anyway, it gets better, guys. It only gets better. Let's keep going.
Couldn't even get that right.
Whitney did his thing and cotton became king. And we were its soldiers, 4 million strong.
Eli Whitney was an inventor who did not own slaves. This is going to be important for later. He invented the cotton gin, which removed seeds out of cotton 10 times faster than slaves. The cotton gin was invented in 1793 and patented in 1794. Not only did this increase the profit of cotton, but it also increased the demands for more slaves. In 1793, it was established that the number of slaves in the South was 700,000. However, after the invention of the cotton gin, the number of slaves increased to 4 million by 1860 before the American Civil War. Now let's put that number in perspective. At the start of the Civil War in 1861, the United States population was 31,443,321, and out of that number, 1.2 million were slaves located in the Upper South. 2.3 million were slaves located in the Lower South, and 433,586 slaves were located in border states.
She's dropping numbers. Brilliant.
That totals to 3,953,696, which is rounded off to 4 million. Now keep in mind that northern states abolished slavery in 1804.
That's huge. 1804, because you figure Lincoln was 1860 to 63, 1861 to 63. So that just blew my mind.
According to the 1860 census, all of the slaves that were located in America were located in the South.
Fighting for America's freedoms, even though we remained America's slaves. Built this country. The descendants of slaves continue to build it. Slaves built this country.
No, they didn't. So let's move on to part 2 of how slaves did not build this country. So let's talk about how this country, which is now known as the United States of America, was built. First, you need shelter, like a house. Then you need a place to teach children, like a school, a place to worship, a church, followed by roads, buildings, bars, factories, banks, hospitals, railroads, sewage systems, businesses, etc. These places were not built by slaves. What am I?
Slaves did not build this country. She said. No slaves did that work. Now, I think the financial backing, you could simply said, you could say that slaves' money were used and slave hard labor was used. But to say only slaves' labor alone did this, that's a lie.
I'm just reading some of the comments here. You didn't. This was alive in the replay in the comments, and we're getting stuff like the elite of all colors owned slaves. We have Irish were the first slaves brought to America. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know Irish were treated harshly, and probably more of the indentured side. I don't know if they were slaves, but that's a good. Okay. I got to look that up. Let's see. I had family disowned because they fought against slavery. I love people who tell the truth. This lady is great. So people in the chats are actually not like lambasting Pastor here. That's good. So what I could see in the chats is totally positive.
You can say there probably was a certain percentage of financial gain from slave labor and stuff like that that went toward building certain things in America. But I think for people to think this, it's like you don't know the history of the West. Not only that's just pure ignorance, but even when you study Great Britain, Germany, Norway, you notice that a lot of these countries were already ahead in developing and things like that before we came over to the Americas. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is the knowledge for some of this stuff was already here. It's not slaves didn't have to personally do this. Okay. But we can say the financial backing probably came from slavery as well, which I wouldn't completely disagree with that.
Systems.
Now, one thing I got to chime in here is this right now, this video is part of a communist system, a socialist system, where Hollywood and mainstream media are going to back this type of video, the proud video, and blast it out there because they want to erase history. And if you check with your schools and your colleges, you'll see that history is being erased with the influence and influx of socialist teachers.
Businesses, etc. These places were not built by slaves. One of my biggest criticism of blacks who embrace this false narrative is the arrogance in their ignorance. In 18th
Oh my goodness, say that again.
narrative is the arrogance in their ignorance.
I have never heard anybody says their arrogance in their ignorance. Maybe that's gonna be my thumbnails. Oh no, slaves did not build this country. It's the thumbnail.
That's a good one.
Anyway, let's keep going.
In 1860, blacks made up about 12.3% of the population, and the vast majority of them were in the South, picking cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, and other valuable crops. You can't compare tilling crops on a plantation to building an infrastructure full of towns and cities. In other words, picking cotton is not the same as building a functional infrastructure. Y'all done lost your minds.
Now, I don't know if you guys know Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's the bomb, too. He's really good. As a matter of fact, he came up with July being White History Month. God bless him. But anyway, Jesse Lee Peterson is... These two, I would love to see them two talking together, Miss Tree and Jesse Lee Peterson. Look him up, too. He's good.
We, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned
Oh my
reparations for
Lord, she
their
is too
suffering.
much. I'm telling you, if some people still gonna find a way to twist the story to make it fit. The woke mob has a way of kind of like readjusting it. But the thing is, there is no way you can say slaves built this country when you think about the vastness of the architect, technology, and knowledge that it takes to do that. It's crazy. You can't even say that. And also considering the population of the slaves that were there then. And listen, we all agree slavery was horrible. What we disagree about now is using that as a tool today to whip American into submission. That is an issue that we are fighting up against.
And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering.
No one alive today deserves payment for something that they never was a part of. Sorry, but the window of opportunity for reparations to freed slaves and their first generation who were directly affected is gone. Not to mention that over 90% of blacks right now living in America, they are not descendants of slaves.
Oh,
Most blacks here in America
True.
are descendants of immigrants, while others are descendants of free slaves.
See, I didn't know that. And again, I know this is a longer video than I normally do, but I believe it's a teaching moment. So, like I said, I'll put comments in, or I'll put the links in the comments for you, and you can go back and watch some of this stuff on your own time. But as a person that wants to meet my goal of interconnecting white, black, whether it's gender equality, to no, the thing with reparations, I'll say that in a minute. Hold on.
And get this, a small percentage of blacks here in America are descendants of black slave owners, like Kamala Harris, whose great-grandfather owned 5 plantations.
Yep, I
Truth
remember
bomb.
that. My friend Darth Vader was talking about that.
Truth bomb.
Let's keep going though. We're just gonna leave that alone. Leave the VP alone.
And over 200 slaves. Oh yeah, did you all know that we had black slave owners here in America? Let's discuss that.
Yes, thanks to Thomas Sowell for that one. I am sure of it. One of the first slave owner was black himself. Anyway, let's keep going.
Contrary to popular belief, all white people in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century did not own slaves. Based upon the 1860 census, only 1.4% of the population were slave owners, and this included black slave owners. As a matter of fact, based upon the 1860 census, over 3,000 blacks own a total of 20,000 slaves.
Now look, if you don't have this information available in schools, that's when their system works. And I believe our whole system right now of what's overpowering the civilians of the United States is broken. All right. And systems work better than goals. I stole that from Scott Adams. And I do believe that. So what happens here is if a unit of people come up with something that could be monetized, i.e. reparations, then political and mainstream media hooks their teeth into it and drives it. And then schools stop teaching what they're teaching and start teaching this. So basically, Pastor probably doesn't know this yet, but this is a political money-making machine. That's all reparations are. At this point, and Lady Tree is right, that ship has sailed. I don't disagree with it if it was 1892 or 1901 or 1902 or 1912. But right now, that ship sailed. And I think right now, look at the diverse money making we have in sports, where that money can trickle down and help families. Do you ever see that happening? I know it happens. Don't get me wrong. I know that people, sign the $120 million contract. I know they pretty much take care of their friends and their own. And mama gets a house, right? You buy mama a house and you see them in the NFL. Hi, mom. That's beautiful. And I hope that more and more mainstream media picks up blacks that are putting into their community with the money they're making. Because that's positive. That's what white, tan, brown, everybody does. You reinvest in your neighborhood, your community. And well, if you make it from here to there, then you scan down below you and see who needs, help. Steven Crowder even says the whole blow up with Steven Crowder was he wants to create a bench, if referring to having like say NBA. If you have a sixth man, you can win more games. Well, if your whole bench is lined up with good talent, then when injuries happen, you slip people in there and you have a good bench, you have a good backup. So anyway, like I said, I'm sorry this is a longer one, but I just had to let everybody see Pastor on this and Miss Tree so that they can get the whole idea. Even if you don't go back and look at it, you're going to get it here at least now, and you're going to see that I am fighting shoulder to shoulder with any race. I'm fighting with the human race.
So it's time to stop thinking that only white people.
Get out of town. What? Nah, that's new information for me.
See?
Over 3,000 blacks owned a total of 20,000 slaves.
Look at them.
But we want to cook Caucasian people in a pot of wokesters today. We just want to cook them alive as if, at least, we're talking about today, not slaves owner. We're talking about today. Like the average white male, we want to hang them upside down. Oh, people, get over it.
Of 20,000 slaves. So it's time to stop thinking that only white people own slaves. Black folks own slaves too. So if you're looking for your reparations, I suggest you go find Laquifa and Tyrone and tell them to give you your money.
Oh,
And continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy.
The reparations thing is never going to happen, so get over it. Also, this is a lie. Michael Brown never said that. And this lie has been debunked over 1 million times.
Even the left-wing media affirmed this was a lie, propagated by CNN. Some other cast members actually went on to say, "We are with you." So in other words, a lot of this social justice warrior stuff that gave rise to the BLM movement, it was a media propaganda.
see
Literally.
what I'm saying? Now he just recognized the money-making machine. In my heart and my opinion, BLM was an amazing idea, and it could have been so well put together and blown up, but it had a fork in the road, and the road it chose to take was take the money and let corporate Democrats and the political money-making machine sink their teeth into that, and then it just went haywire.
Literally. So Michael Brown's death, sad, but he was up to no good either. Was also used as a weapon to turn this country upside down. And today, we have more issues concerning racism and hating of white people than ever before. This lady is spitting knowledge. Let me stop. Let's get back to her stuff. She speaks better than I can.
Systemic prejudice is not a thing. And since you want to mention racism, are we going to talk about the growing racism against Asians? And
Systemic racism is not a thing. I was talking to somebody. They say, yeah, there is such a thing as systemic racism, system that are put in place to hold black people back. I say, are you referring to affirmative action? Because it seems like things like that are encouraging blacks and systematically holding Asians from being in position where they belong.
One thing I got to chime in on that too is don't forget there's always fallout from any idea, whether it be good fallout, like a new idea from a good idea, or a bad idea. And witness testimony from other people that I've seen have said directly, affirmative action is a good thing for black people, but what it does, it has casualties to it. And that means maybe a good white or Asian or Spanish, they might not get a job, and they might be like completely qualified and perfect for the job, but they get told they can't move up any further because they need to have a black person put in that spot. Now, that doesn't mean the employer either believes in it or don't believe in it, but it was a rule set by our socialistic government, and it actually had fallout that was negative, in my opinion. Do your research.
And I say, can you name one or two systematic racism alive and well today that is holding black people from being or doing anything? I don't know. I don't see it. I can hear the equality of opportunity or equity or of outcome, whatever it is. We can have these discussions, which I can understand some of that stuff when we talk about equity and equality. But I think the Marxists took this stuff too far. The
Nicely
communist
said.
regime has
Nicely
at
said.
least the perspective, the ideology.
Right now, if you from Kamala Harris all the way through Congress, and then either commercial or mainstream media or big tech, they're flipping equality, which keeps us all like loving each other and good to each other, no matter the race, gender, social status, wealth. They won equality years ago, but now they're flipping it and turning it into equity. And what equity means is everybody across the board makes the same amount of progress and money. This is in layman's terms, which that's socialism. So if you hear equity out of somebody's mouth, that's really socialism. Equality is what I fight for. I want me to be as equal to the person next to me and vice versa. So that was good though. Pastors, you can tell he's starting to get the cranks turning, and that was a wonderful little statement right there.
Is being has been stolen to be used as a mean of controlling people, robbing the rich for the poor, kind of thing.
Socialism.
But yeah. So where is the systematic racism? Help me to find it. Teach me the things that are systematically racist, and let's go and deal with these things for what they are. And the thing is, most people will say systematic racism. They cannot give you a single example of it.
Million times. Systemic prejudice is not a thing. And since you want to mention racism, are we going to talk about the growing racism against Asians and whites done by black folks? Are we going to pretend that's...
She said it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I'm telling you,
Well,
that video got me a lot of love, a lot of thumbs ups, but that video got me some hate, especially from blacks. They were upset because I said, "What are we doing to white people?" video. I reacted to that Chien video. Some people got really upset with me. Some people were happy, but I don't care. I'm one of those guys. Once I'm convinced on a particular truth, I preach it.
not happening? Oh yeah, and when was the last time you seen this take place? If you have to take an old black and white photo from the 40s and 50s and try to make that...
I saw a video of a Asian guy. I wish I didn't see it. They slit his throat, man. You know who did it? Black people. Not white supremacists. Black people did it. Black people. And I saw a homeless guy on Twitter the other day who got beat up. And I think, yeah, he actually passed away too. You know who did it? Black people. Black people. I still can't find any single video of black people getting beat up by whites. Anything like that. I haven't been able to find one of those. Just for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, I haven't found that. A lot of the attacks that either Asians or whites are experiencing is not because they've done something to you. They just do it because they can. They beat on these people because they're white. And we refuse to hold black people accountable.
And imagine, it's number one, the educational system is bad. The homes and the economy of the inner cities is bad. And that is propagated by the blue mayors and governors. But mostly the blue mayors of these big cities. They don't have, they took care of policing. There's no more policing. Police are afraid. There's bad cops, I get it. You're never going to hear me say 100 of them out of 100 are perfect. You know, even if it's 90%. Right now, police officers know they got their camera on And right now, I believe more moral police officers are joining the force just because their dad was a good cop and they want to keep the tradition going. But in today's society, you're just a knucklehead, evil person if you're wearing that camera and abusing people. So hopefully, which I think is happening, policing is improving.
Like, yo, you're not gonna get me to join that party.
Relevant to today proves that you don't have any arguments.
That America was founded with and still has not atoned for. Slaves built this country.
Again, America was not founded on slavery. European colonization began in 1492. The first 19 slaves weren't brought here until 1619. It is a historical fact that America was not founded on slavery. It was founded by Europeans for 127 years before the first Africans were brought to this land. So no, slaves did not build this country.
Not only field hands, but carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, musicians, inventors built cities from Jamestown to New Orleans to Banneker, Washington. 40 acres and a mule. We'll take the 40 acres, keep the mule.
Keep the mule? You do understand the purpose of the mule, right? The mule was offered so that blacks can plow the land in order to build a farm. So how you going to get a 40 acres and no mule? This proves that people who are always looking for handouts are financially ignorant.
We made your families rich.
No, you didn't. You
Boom.
didn't make anybody's family rich. Stop spreading that lie. You can't even prove that madness. Shut up.
From the southern plantation heirs to the northern bankers to the new.
I've also heard I've done a recent research where it's proven that slavery actually hurt the American economy more than anything. It did not actually work to the benefit. And these were financials advisors that were talking about this from the Wall Street Journal. And they were addressing how slavery, we would have been better off never engaged in the act of slavery as Americans. But it actually hurt the economy more than anything. Now, I'm sure people benefit from the labor. Of course, somebody will. This is a capitalist society. What do you expect? But nevertheless, slavery was horrible. It was bad, and we agree.
I agree.
I just think my issue is just the way it is being used by the woke mob today to destroy and control everything. And they become a bunch of moralists who feel the need to judge and control and tear down statues, take down images of philosophers, tearing apart anything who has any vestige of racism in them because they are so pious and holy and righteous, holier than thou today, as if that if they had lived in those days, they themselves probably will not had any of these perspectives of themselves or concerning somebody else. So oftentimes one generation like to condemn another, but the thing that's troubling to me, we like to make it appear we are so pious and holy today, but we are reaping babies out of the mother's womb today, and we call that pro-choice. We are doing things today that I think generations before would look at and say, no, we're not going this far. We say men can get pregnant today. You know? And then we acting like we are more holy than somebody else. We acting like the generations before, if they had a little bit of Shakespeare or any Dr. Seuss or anything, oh, we say that is racist, so they need to be canceled. And I'm like, bro, you think you're better than them? Have mercy.
We would ship on the founding fathers, former presidents, current senators,
The Illuminati, the New World Order,
slaves built this country.
Nope, no, they didn't. Also, how you going to forget about the Greeks, the Irish, the Italians, Hungarians, Poles, and other Slavic immigrants who literally built this country? And they weren't even considered white during that time. Oh, and I also need to mention the Japanese, Chinese, and the Hispanics.
Facts. I listened to your comments, guys, and you guys commented in my videos about this. You were saying your fathers were slaves themselves and they were not black. Some of them were Hungarians. Some of them were from Norway and different parts of the world. They were served as slaves as well. But the only people making noise today are black people, woke driven black people, and also some woke driven liberals, white liberals, who are combining their voices to call everything racist
Yep.
when their knowledge of history is so skewed.
You guys act like the only people who were here in America during this time were black slaves and white slave owners. Oh, and one more thing. Native Americans also owned slaves.
We had Tubman, Turner,
Frederick D.
then they say Lincoln freed the slaves.
But slaves were men.
And women, and only we can free ourselves.
I don't understand this part. Yes, slaves were men and women. Like, yeah, is that a surprise to you guys?
Emancipation is not freedom. Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, public schools, feeding private prisons, where we become slaves again.
None of this makes you a slave. And redlining, public schools, and private prisons are not exclusive to only blacks. So stop lying. Also,
Nice.
you
Yeah,
need
I
to
heard
show
about
this.
I heard about that. I was reading about redlining earlier today. the way it is being used, it's not even. It's like we make it seem like black people are the only one who's ever been redlined. Like I can say every culture, every nation, in some degree or another, have been redlined.
Very good.
The thing is what we choose to do with the opportunities that we now have.
Good job, Pastor.
Yeah, we did not. There were things that happened that definitely held black people back. I agree. There were things that happened in the culture that weren't right, but there were things that happened to many others beside black people. But it seems like the rest of the race have managed to do pretty well, apart from the Indians, and I think the Indians and the blacks are the two races today that are struggling the most with their historical. I mean, it breaks my heart. We gotta figure something out, but it seems like everybody else is rising up. I'm sure it has a lot to do with culture. It has a lot to do with decision, personal accountability. It has a lot to do with hard work. It has a lot to do with proper education. It has a lot to do with willingness to rise. I think we're being held back the more we are told we are a slave, and until today we're still fighting a system that is no longer here, guys. Let's go forward, you know?
Signed to black people, not whites. Now don't make me pull out them FBI statistics.
We celebrate Juneteenth for the umpteenth time.
I grew up in an all-black community in Washington, D.C., went to all-black public schools, and even graduated from a historical black university. Not one time did we celebrate Juneteenth. So since it wasn't a thing back then, it's not going to be a thing with me now.
God
Moving
bless.
on.
Our account is still outstanding. Because this country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country.
If your account is still outstanding, that means you need to get a job.
Boom!
Oh, and no, slaves did not build this country.
So
And
thank
we
you.
demand our 40 acres and a mule. You can keep the mule.
Keep the 40.
We're taking our freedom.
You're taking your freedom, so we're good? You don't want your 40 acres. You definitely don't want the mule. All you want is your freedom, right? Well, since slavery is illegal here in the United States of America and you're already free, America doesn't owe you a damn thing.
Bye-bye.
Man, I'm so glad we worked this out. Glad we had this talk. Oh, and by the way, is
funny.
anyone going to call out LaQuandra over here for
LaQuandra.
culturally appropriating an overweight white woman? No, we're not gonna call. No accountability. No. Okay. Well,
Look, man. that was good. That was good. I'm gonna leave you with watching that. Please like, subscribe, share, hit that bell for me. I bring this to you with nothing but love. I got friends all over the country. I got friends in Europe. We all get along, and I'm just fighting the media. I'm fighting the woke, and I just want us to be together and not oppress anybody for any reason. Oppression makes money. If you see, if you see on the mainstream media right now with the Georgia attack on the police training, if that doesn't tell you, if they're just saying that's protesting, since George Floyd, which is another video, what you saw in Georgia was not just a riot. That was an attack on our sovereignty, because there was people from France, from what I understand, 35 of them were gathered up, rounded up, and I think at least 22 were arrested. They had a lawyer there from the civil, I have to think of what that was, but there was a lawyer there from a very prominent leftist group, the civil law something. I apologize for that. But listen, I'm tired of telling people to do their own research. I do believe that we've gotten to a spot now where from, a little bit below me to me, and then go up the ladder of people that are doing what we're doing, these channels, it is starting to affect people to start their own channels. And God bless. What we need to do is create zero oppression by any force. And we are in the midst of a World War III, whether it's off our land or if it's civil and cultural. Tim Pool says it's now full-blown cultural. So a cultural war is exactly what you see it in the reverse racism. And I'll end with isms. All right? ISM apostrophe S. Isms. When you fight for something good and you start gaining ground and you're fighting and you're winning, it's almost like, think of it like a sports team. They start at like the bottom, and over a couple years, they're getting new players in, they're winning more games, their ratio of wins to losses is starting to really go up good. Don't you know that they can't stay like that forever either? So when you have racism, from 1860 to 1960, that was a lot of white people trying to erase slavery. A lot of white people. Many, many, many white people. I'm one of them now that I'm so ashamed of what was going on, but I'm also educated enough to know that in the 100 years of 1860 to 1960, by 1960 in Kennedy, it was a cauldron bubbling, because there was such a faction that just wanted to hold black race down. And there were so many white people that were like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I grew up in an era that when you saw people squirted with hoses or hit with batons by the police, it broke my heart. My family, I grew up in a zero racial negativity family. There was no N-words. There was no hate this race for whatever. I grew up in a loving, caring family to help your brother and sister that's in need, or your family member, or your neighbor. You help them. So an ism that is attained and won, eventually you got you won the World Series, you won the NBA championship or whatever. You got to walk away and retire and move on to another thing that needs to have a good voice and a problem that's solved and a new system input, right? So when isms reached and attained, something happens. You get addicted to that win in each little battle to get to the top. And the evil way, I already said what the good way, just retire and move on to something else. But the evil way is you're addicted to the win, and you got to now turn it around. And that's why I feel like it's more like a reverse racism now, because there was no money to be left if all the races were getting along. And I'm not talking about the very, very few 3%, by 2010, maybe there's 3% of America that still had that genetic, I hate this race, I hate that race. But by 2023, black and white want to stick together. White wants Asian to succeed. Asian wants to succeed. You know, and I don't know the numbers on that, but I hear there's problems with, you know, the way to get into colleges, you know, and depending on your race, it's a lot easier to get in there than the white person. And it is hard right now for a lot of white people, especially men, a Christian white male that takes care of his family and works real hard is hated in the media, mainstream media. And we only have Congress left that have the good genetic gene in them that won't take the money that will help heal America. On that, please kiss, love, hug a veteran. Check out Gretchen Smith too. She has Code of Vets at Code of Vets on Twitter. If you're a veteran that's down and needs help, Gretchen is one of the best that will get you help and find a path for you, financially or mentally or vocationally, whatever. It's just a good, safe place. Code of Vets on Twitter is a good way to contact her. I think it's codeofvets.com also. Anyway, kiss, love, hug a vet. They do it for you. They did it for you. They died for you. And I firmly love our vets and first responders. Take care, and I will see you on the other side.